here come the optional rules. The optional rules expand on everything that you have seen in the previous chapters. So first of all, they give you new terrain types. The terrain types now include shallow water, swamp or deep water, and different kinds of other things. Then they, again, just as was previously explained, they cover single combatants and units. Something that is completely new and comes with the optional rules are maneuvers. Maneuvers are a lot of fun, but beware, they take time also. Maneuvers will increase the immersion experience that we'll have with the game. It is even more like a role-playing game when you use maneuvers, because your combatants can now disengage from an existing melee combat, run, sprint, charge, climb, jump. And we have included special maneuvers that are specifically able to bring role-playing experience here, like pick locks and search or use an item. Of course, every maneuver is explained here, what it does, and also if you engage in this maneuver, like in this climbing maneuver, it's easier when you're using a ladder than when you're trying to climb a wall that is pretty rough or is very, very smooth. Something that's also new is jumping. Jumping requires your character to move a certain distance and then commence with a jump. So the farther you want to jump, the larger the distance that you have to cover in front of that. Searching is also pretty good. If you search, your search is always modified where you are searching. So if you're trying to search for something in the swamp, good luck. Compared to clear terrain, it's easier, of course, to find something. Picking a lock depends on the type of lock that you're trying to pick. Swimming also is probably a good idea when you're wearing no armor, but if you start trying to swim with a combatant that has plate armor equipped, well, he needs a very, very good die roll to do that, actually. Then we have unit maneuvers, and unit maneuvers are a little bit more constrained because there are some things that units cannot do, so not all maneuvers are available to units. Then comes a chapter that Rolemaster players will immediately recognize again, and that's fumbles. Fumbles are great fun. If you love to see people fail, the fumble is your thing. Fumbles can happen in each situation of the game. So you can have, of course, now we start here with the maneuver chapters, so we have maneuver fumbles. And when you try to do a sprint maneuver and you fumble, meaning you rolled only once, or the death die is a 1 and one other die is a 1, then you created a fumble, you fumbled. The charge can fumble, the jump can fumble, the search can fumble, and you roll on this table and with a d10 and see how badly you fumbled. Meaning the lower the numbers, the easier it is to get out of the situation again. It's just a minor thing, a minor mishap. But if you roll very, very high, something very, very bad and hurtful can happen at times. This, of course, can happen also to units. Units can fumble just as well as regular combatants. Here go the optional rules for melee combat. And we have new modifiers, second line polearm attacks. And here come the melee fumbles. If you have a melee fumble, this, depending on the weapon that the character is wielding, will happen to have a very, very bad effect. Multiple melee attacks is something that was incorporated here from the Bladestorm Bestiary. Multiple attacks are especially happening with big creatures, something like dragons. Here we go with missile combat. Unit missile attacks and others. Of course, missiles can also fumble, but since we have only two kinds we have missile weapons and thrown weapons in the game, of course, the fumble chart is a little smaller. The morale roll and the morale rules can be extended, and the optional rules bring a lot of formations to units. So if you want to have a combatant experience with lots of units, these optional rules they bring everything to the table that you would like to see with unit movement and unit versus unit attacks. Something that is also coming back is more special combatants. Very important, we now have musicians, so you can use each miniature out there that has some kind of music instruments, be it a horn blower or a drummer or whatever they hold in their hands. They can be musicians on the table. You can use them like bards, something like that. And musicians use songs similar to spells, so the mechanics are the same. We come to that later. Then we have also standard bearers. They were a little bit improved over the first edition, where they were a little bit bland. Now it really pays off to have a standard bearer with you, and it is very bad if you lose him. Mounted combatants is a big change from first edition. Previously, in first edition, it was detailed in a way that there was only one combatant card for the mount with its rider, and the rider was inheriting part of the endurance points of the mount. This has been now split. You have a combatant card for the mount and you have a combatant card for the rider. And if somebody attacks the combination of the two, there is a chance he will hit the mount or the rider. And of course, if the mount goes below 50% of its endurance points and the mount fails its morale roll, the mount will take the rider to someplace else, but nothing that the rider can control. Oh yes, vehicles. Vehicles and vehicle cards. This is the last new card type that got into the game. Vehicles can be anything from a chariot, a ballista, to a siege weapon or a platform carried by a giant. Vehicles use materials similar like regular combatants have a race like an orc or a human or an elf. The mechanics are the same at this point, just saying that a vehicle made from wood has different modifiers than a vehicle made from iron or from brass or copper. Then we have unit versus unit combat. And here we have the songs and war sounds. Not in 5 levels, but we have 3 levels of songs and war sounds that musicians can use. And in contrary to regular spell users, musicians do not use spell points. There are no music points, obviously, but they have to take a break. So they take a break of a number of turns until they can play the same tune again. And yes, they can fumble. Those are the regular spell fumbles that you can have, and as all magic is defined by certain types of effects, area effects, directed attacks, we have now an elemental attack. So if you have a fireball or a firebolt and you fumble that, those are the possible effects. Force attacks like shouts, holes, confusion, then you take this line, or anything else like portals, bless, or healing. When they fumble, these are their effects. Then come personal challenges before and after and during the battle, the flying rules, and that's it with the rules. Now come the campaign rules. The campaign rules can be summarized as party management. So regardless if you play a solo campaign or a cooperative campaign against a certain mission, a scenario, or if you're playing against each other, each time you win over an opponent, over another combatant, his or her total point cost becomes experience points. These experience points are then turned into development points, and you can spend them to improve your character. And this is done inside the campaign rules. So the campaign rules have their own sequence where you select a scenario, you select the TPC limit, you choose your combatants, and if your combatants are debilitated and cannot, or sick or hurt, you can also hire mercenaries. You select the spells that you want to use in a certain adventure, and you play the scenario. So this is the section before playing the scenario, and then you have a section that happens after playing the scenario. This is where you recover the defeated, you apply the effects of injury, you distribute experience points and enhance your combatants. Mind you, this changes the TPC, so your combatant becomes more valuable. You can sell, of course, the goods and the loot that you got, but you also have to pay the mercenaries, otherwise bad things can happen. Once that happened, you can buy goods, equip the items that you found, and recruit new forces. Of course, the campaign rules take you to all these different chapters, and here we have also after the game, when something happens, if you recover the people that were left defeated, so they do not die automatically, even though they have 0 endurance points, they just count as defeated, and after the game we'll see if they come back or if they have a certain kind of affliction. Then we go to the experience and development chapters, which is very important. This little chart tells you who gives experience points and who can receive experience points. And of course, here are the rules to tell you what and how much you can raise, because it would be kind of unfair if you had just one battle with a load of experience points and you just develop one certain stat of your miniature or of your combatant to the maximum possible. So it takes you basically in increments and steps. Here you can sell your goods, and something that's very important by selling stuff is that the value of your items is determined by what kind of trader you have in front of you. So if your merchant is a real cut purse, he will give you less gold for your wares than if you were and had the imperial discount, for instance. Paying mercenaries, and off we go to the scenarios. The scenarios take place in the Bladelands. So we have this map that was reconstructed from 2 maps of the first edition, 2 separate maps back then. Now they're combined, so you see what are the main roads, the main cities, and the main outposts in the certain territory, and what the political structure is there. Helps you to have your bearings. Here are 10 scenarios, and you can play them or in any order or in a row, just if whatever you like to go first with. And each scenario has certain loot options that go together with them, and they introduce certain characters, NPCs, and they are only given here with the most important features, so you can use the templates over at RPG Now to print out your character cards for them. So, tells you how to set up the scenario, some more player information, who goes where, what the victory conditions are, and what random encounters may or may not happen. After these 10 scenarios come the mercenary forces. As I said before, you can hire mercenaries if you have enough gold, and if you do not have or do not want to go with certain combatants of your adventuring party into the battle. You can roll 1d100 on this table, and it takes you to a certain entry. And the lower you roll, like if you roll a 1 or a 2, you get 2 tavern drunks. Or if you roll a 74, you get a veteran magician. Over to more advanced characters and even heroes. So you can have regular arms master, which is a combatant that also has a profession applied. And the higher you roll, the bigger and better your mercenaries can get. But of course, as can be expected, they become more expensive. Well, here we go with the items and supplies chapter, which is basically a system to generate all kinds of items for the game. You roll on the main item chart, and the item chart basically tells you then what it is that you rolled. And if it's a magic item, then you go onto the subcharts. This can also be used to receive the values, the monetary value of any item that you can place in the game. You can see what kind of item it is and what kind of magic it has, because there's also magic charts. So each spell that you found before in the book can be applied as a permanent effect to a magic item. And that, of course, raises the value of the item quite significantly. And we have here the mentalism spells, the essence spells, and of course the channeling spells. that concludes the campaign rules. We have now the appendix. And the appendix is all about creating your own characters and combatants and creating forces for the game. There is a very, very handy tool, the Bladestorm calculator, which is basically an Excel-based tool that you can use with lots of little drop-down menus, and the drop-down menus construct a combatant card on the right-hand side. Take these values, enter them into a template, print it out, and voila, you have your character for the game. Every piece of information that is used to build a character for the game is in here and explained. And of course, in the back of the book, you get the tables with the values. So everything that's happening up front has a value assigned to it. Here is the weapon cost chart, how much does weapon cost. Here is a chart for the races and how much they cost. And so we go on and on until we reach the vehicles. And as I said before, vehicles can be constructed of wood, tin, copper, iron, steel, or yes, even stone. And this brings with it a lot of modifications and how, or if at all, vehicles can be pulled and what kind of modifiers they have in order to get hit. Of course, vehicles have their own weapons tables. So we have edged weapons like rotating blades that can be attached to chariots, or swinging blades, or we have a battering ram that can be attached to the vehicle to construct siege weapons. Here are some charts for summoning. So if you do not want to build your own summoned animal with the rules found in the spell, you can simply go ahead and spend a number of spell points, power points, and print out and get the animal, the undead, the demon, or the elemental that you want to have. Then follows a index of all the professions and the skills that they have, and the main skill index. You can take the skills found in this index to craft your own custom professions. In this chapter we do have some information from the bestiary. Those are all certain creatures that popped up in the scenarios. If you want to flesh them out a little bit more, you can take the information and the special rules included from the bestiary here for elementals, for undead, or the tree fiends. There's also some conversions here, so you can use these rules provided by the game to convert your Rolemaster Second Edition hero or a fantasy hero character to characters for the game. Here come printable templates. So if you just want to not print out the files, the PDF files that you can find online, you can simply swap this book on a copy machine and have it copy out these cards. You have vehicle cards, unit cards, profession cards, and of course the individual professions. Very handy in the end, the standard game summary sheet and the optional rules summary sheet. So, of course, I really like to advertise the depth of game that can be found with the optional rules. So they also become very manageable. If you played them for a while, they incorporate greatly into the standard game and integrate with the standard game. Well, that about covers it. This is Bladestorm Second Edition.